about the moon in Virgo. So when the moon is in Virgo, it brings that psychological, emotional quality of our life into the realm of Virgo, which is about mutable earth energy. So Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which brings in a lot of curiosity, flexibility, organization, and especially the organization part of Mercury becomes well established and developed in Virgo, where it filters down into this earthy, stabilizing quality. So all of those details become stabilized, organized, and maneuvered, and we can maneuver around them and also put them in their proper place. So it's kind of an interesting thing, like organizing our emotional life, being practical about our feelings. For example, you can bring those things together, and you can see why there's an inherent kind of, maybe if not struggle, at least challenge in one sense, because again, the feelings aren't necessarily very practical, so we can be a little too, maybe stuck a little bit in interpreting and bringing language into feeling, right? But in another way, it can be, quite beneficial because we're not so practical with our feelings. We need to be more practical, right? And so it shows where that desire to really explore and ponder and interpret the emotions, which are very abstract and watery and flowy, can be quite beneficial. So again, you can see the relationship between earth and water pretty easily. They're the two feminine elements. Of course, water is related to the moon and feeling. Earth is related to Virgo, as I said. But water rests on earth. Earth is a natural structure for water. And so, and also, when you put water into earth, earth then creates plants, right? So water makes earth very fertile, and earth makes water, contained and stable, helps to stabilize it. So these are a couple things to understand. So the real benefit when the moon is in Virgo is we can be more practical and sensible about the part of our existence that's kind of nonsensical. The moon is not practical, it's emotional, it's not very rational. But again, it can also, we can get into a kind of illusion that feelings are, that feelings need to make sense, and because it doesn't make sense, I'm going to project some kind of sense onto it, some kind of sensibility. Well, here's the reason why I feel that way, and it's this like kind of intellectual exercise. And this is always the kind of illusion or the difficulty of Virgo, is to want to wrap things up into a nice neat little package, a nice neat little bow, and then okay, now I'll put that in its little place, right? And for some things it's good, and it's good to have that skill can be very beneficial in a world of a lot of details coming at us that we can't manage. But again, there's an illusion around, like a little girl, Virgo is a young girl. I often think of a good symbol of Virgo is like a young girl playing with like a dollhouse, right? Now you do this, okay, everybody gets along and we're all happy. There's this like purity about that sign. Literally, it's a premenstrual young girl before become sexual and all that, when there's that innocent mind, Kanya, and wanting to just kind of retain that purity and that innocence, and that's a great benefit. But in a world of impurity and treachery, it can be difficult, and especially emotions, which are anything but, easy to, fix and dress up. So Virgo can tend to maybe put on these facades, like emotional facades and emotional illusions. And again, you have to consider other things as well. I mean, that's one placement, but other factors in the chart might show that we're dressing that doll in some pretty clothes, or we might be dressing the doll in some, impure clothes, But that's the theme of Virgo, is to make it something practical and rational and structured, right? And so based on other things that influence the moon and influence other chart factors, like it might be a Aquarius person where the moon is, where that's the 8th house. So then there becomes all kinds of other things with how those feelings become contained and controlled and manipulated, because this is also a theme of Virgo around 8th house themes, which are fears, for example. And so maybe all of those little details are very precise kind of ways to control situations or control people, or it could be and so it gets dressed up in that sort of garb. Or maybe it's, let's say, 3rd house, which would be like a Cancer rising, and that's the ruling planet. Then again, that's also sort of desires and dress everything up in that little like that little dollhouse, right? So it's an interesting metaphor, and especially for the moon, which is that innocent heart, where we're kind of naked, where we're kind of exposed. And Virgo, kind of like the young girl playing with the dolls, putting the different clothes and putting the thing where it belongs, might be an interesting metaphor to try out also for the moon and Virgo.